Thank you. I actually don't have them here anyway, but I'll let you know later. I'm going to do that later once this is over. So, thanks, you guys. Mm-hmm. Yes. Hi, are you here for the organ thing? Sorry. Are you here? Here, I got some handouts. We're going to have stuff up on the screen, so just be in a spot where you can see. Okay? There you go.
Testing. Testing.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah, yes. All the things. Yeah, we can slide in on the right. Just over the top. Just go like this.
Oh, yeah, we can
Just go over the top or around here.
I thought it was a little bit.
Yeah.
We're trying to actually demo like pretend that like how to pretend that that was fun instead of like this is it, this is it, this is it.
Yeah.
And I'm like
That's
so I
perfect.
was like, why was it in okay, why was it in my life?
It was our first time. Oh, do you guys have more? If you brought anything, just put it out there. This is for you. Awesome. Hello? Oh. Are you ready? Okay. Welcome to our organ workshop. We're going to get started with a prayer. I'll just go ahead and do that since I got the mic. Father in heaven, we are grateful that we can be gathered together today to learn about the organ and conducting. We're grateful to have music as a tool to help us come closer to Thee, and we're grateful for how it enriches our worship. And we pray for help today that we can learn, that we can retain what we are learning and be able to use it and apply it as we are serving through music. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Welcome, and thanks for being here. It's kind of echoey. That's just how it is. Okay, great. So, my name's Megan. I am the stake music chair, I think, is my calling. So, part of that calling is to do educational things in the stake. So, that is why we are talking today about organ skills and conducting skills. So I just want to get an idea of who is here today. So raise your hand if you're completely new to the organ. Like maybe you've played like a teeny tiny bit just to noodle around. Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you've played the organ maybe less than 5 years. Okay. Anybody more than 5 years? Okay. Okay, does everybody here at least play the piano as your starting point? Okay, good. Good to know who I'm talking to. Is anybody currently serving as an organist or accompanist in your ward? Okay, awesome. Okay, I have a roll that I'm going to pass around. I'd like your email addresses so I can send you like links and handouts and stuff afterward. There is a pen on there as well. So we're gonna dive right in and start talking about fingering techniques that are specific to the organ, because the organ is quite a bit different than the piano. When we're playing the piano, we have the sustain pedal that allows you to sustain this sound even after you have lifted your finger, but we don't have that on the organ. So as soon as you lift your finger, that sound's going to stop. So there are different techniques that we can use to help the sound be smooth and legato, and so we don't have big breaks as we're changing notes. So that's where we're going to start, is with the finger technique. So let me head over to the organ. In your handout, this is going to be on page 3. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're on page 3. So all of those for like one song, right? Yeah, it's just to practice potential different ways. And the one that you choose is going to vary based on what else is going on, where your hand already is, what finger you're already using, what's coming next, the context of the piece. Yeah, great question. Okay. All right, so going to finger glissando, this is where you're sliding from a black key to an adjacent white key with the same finger, okay? And you can write it with a dash in between, although, oh yeah, you see the dash in between, like on that second measure. So, how that looks in practice, so if we're going from like this note with the black key to the white key, we can do it with the same finger. And the goal is to have it be smooth and connected without hearing the new note. You know, we don't want that pause in between. We want it to be really smooth. So just sliding from that black note down to the white note. Okay. Yep, so you're just dragging and yeah, just sliding. I'm using my thumb down to the white note. You just slide off the black. Yep. You can do it with the second finger, third finger, it doesn't really matter. So any finger can do it. Okay. Any other questions on finger glissando? You could also do it with two fingers at once. Okay. Okay, thumb glissando. This is where we're using the base of the thumb and the tip of the thumb as different digits, different fingers, okay? So you're going to alternate between the tip of the thumb and then the base of the thumb is going to come up and take over and play that note for you so that the tip of the thumb can become free to play the next note. Okay, so I'll demonstrate that again. So you're playing with the tip of the thumb. You're going to replace it with the base of the thumb here so that that note is sustained. And now the tip of the thumb is free to play the next note. Yeah. Oh, you okay? You're over here. Okay, so playing first with the tip of the thumb, and then the base of the thumb is going to take over and free up the tip of the thumb to play the next note. Okay, so your thumb becomes two fingers. Yeah? That make sense? Okay. Go both directions. Okay. Any questions about thumb glissando? Kind of weird. We don't do that on piano. Okay, go ahead and flip the page to page 4. And we'll talk about substitution. Okay, so substitution is where we will switch fingers while we're holding a key down so that we can use the original finger for the next note. Kind of like the thumb glissando, but we're actually using two different fingers. Okay? So, for example, if I'm playing, let's see. Yeah, so if I'm playing with this second finger, I can take over with the thumb to keep it pressed down, and now my second finger is free again to play the next note. Now the thumb takes over, second finger is free to play the next note. Okay? So this can come in handy if you see this example on page 4, it's number 3A. You see third and fifth finger are holding something. So they're not really free to help play and move these lower notes. So that's one example of when you would use substitution to do that moving line underneath. So you're substituting with first finger. Now second finger is free. And you can go back the other way too. Can you see that okay on the camera? Okay. Okay, any questions on substitution? I highly recommend using these examples, coming and sitting at the organ at some point and figuring it out in real life. Okay, so the last finger technique we'll talk about today is redistribution. And this is where this comes in handy with the hymns that we play, which are written for voices, right? They're not organ scores. They're not written for the organ. They're written for voices. So sometimes it doesn't fit nicely in the hand. So redistribution comes in handy when you can take an alto voice and play it in the left hand, or a tenor voice and play it in the right hand. And you'll just do that based on what fits in the hand. Sometimes you're playing something down here, and the alto is like down here, but the soprano's up here or something. So it doesn't make sense to play the alto with the right hand. And so it just makes sense to do it with the left hand. Okay? So you can notate that in your part with a curved line or some brackets. You could also just cross out the other notes and write them into the other hand. So, yeah, I think that covers that portion. So, any questions on redistribution? Great question. So, I'll say the question in the mic. So those who are on the recording. Okay, great. So the question is, does it make a difference, or does it matter if one hand is on the swell or the grate, the different manual keyboards? And so if they're, if the sound settings are significantly different, the registration is significantly different, you might notice that line kind of popping down into the other keyboard and then coming back. So in that case, yeah, you would want to think about that, and you may choose to have both hands on the same keyboard for that hymn, so that you're not having that disruption of that line. Or when you're practicing, you may feel like, it doesn't really matter and it's not too noticeable, and so you can make that call. Okay. Other questions about, yeah? Okay, the question is the different manual keyboards, the swell and the grate, and what the difference is. So we're going to have a portion in a moment about the different parts of the organ, and I think Rochelle's on that part, right? You're going to tell us the parts of the organ, so she can go more in depth about that. But briefly, each keyboard has its own set of stops and can have a different sound, but they're the same otherwise. Like the notes are the same. It's the same range of notes, but you can just have different sounds on each one. So, okay, any other questions about fingering techniques? Okay, so we're going to have Haley come talk to us about some general tips.
If I use this mic, is that okay? Okay. Okay, first of all, kudos to Harvey for being here today. He is a level 2 pianist just getting started, and I'm super thrilled that you're excited to learn a little bit more about the organ. Um, so if you look at the tips page, it's page 2 in your handout. It starts with a quote from the handbook, and I will just emphasize the second sentence, that prelude music, its purpose is to create an atmosphere of worship that invites the Spirit. That music is a huge part of our worship on Sunday. And so the prelude music sets the tone. The postlude music, as the congregation is leaving, sets the tone for the next meeting that they will be having. And Elder Christofferson's talk from this last conference about worshiping just really stood out to me. And I think music is a huge part of that. And I just personally been reflecting on ways that I can better worship on the Sabbath. Okay, so tips about prelude and postlude. Just one general tip that I do. I don't know if Megan or Rochelle do this, but I feel like my prelude, when I first get on the organ, and I try to be on the organ 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes before people start coming, or before or sacrament meeting starts. And my prelude will usually start pretty quiet, and then as more people come, I turn up the volume a little bit as the chatter increases, just so that my music can be heard a little bit more, but I definitely am not playing too loud. I want it to still encourage reverence and encourage people to be a little bit quieter, but I do feel that the more people that come and just that little bit of chatter kind of drowns me out a little bit. So I do turn up the volume a little bit as I play my prelude from the beginning to the end. I think this is an important tip. It's okay to have a few seconds of silence between songs. And so I think that encourages, once the congregation, if they're chatting, hears that silence, it kind of just is a wake-up call to quiet down, because there's nothing to cover up their noise. I think this is tricky, personally. I always am a little bit panicked about this, of when the bishopric member stands up and it's time to start, especially like if I've just started or I'm like in the middle and it's hard to like jump to the end. Anyways, but that's something that comes with practice. I still don't think I'm awesome at it, but I keep trying. But trying to figure out how to close up your prelude music as the bishopric member comes up to start. Yeah, sure.
So one of the things that I have done, which is I have actually communicated with the bishopric, and I have told them, and I've appreciated, so we've gotten into a mode where they'll nod to the organist, and they'll be like, hey, we're ready to get up, instead of having to do the scramble. It's so, and it's been super helpful. And then I give them we will give a nod back that we acknowledge that they're wanting to get up, and then we will close it out as quickly as we can from that point. So I think that is probably the key, is to communicate with your bishopric, and hopefully they'll be receptive to that.
Yeah. And I feel like bishopric members who know music, I have a couple in my ward that, sing and things like that. So they're aware of what it sounds like when the song is wrapping up. And so they're really good about standing up as I'm finishing a song.
I have learned a couple of tricks over the last years.
Pass
So
them
I
on.
usually I have my phone next to me so I can see the time. And when it gets maybe 1-2 minutes before, I find the easiest, simplest hymn that I know that I can quickly think in that key, like C major, D major, whatever, F major. And I know that I can, on the spot, wrap up my cadence and finish it up halfway, third of the way, or end of the way. And also it helps, so even when the bishop or bishopric comes to the pulpit, I feel like at that point, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit in charge, so you're going to have to wait until that cadence comes to a close. I never abruptly stop.
Yeah.
So
Same,
that's
I
been,
know.
Yeah, really helpful. And sometimes I find more elaborate preludes, but when the time comes closer, I'm always opening to my 5 hymns that I do, and I do just little things. Try to look at all this.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts about prelude and postlude? My postlude is usually a little bit louder because I feel like the congregation is a little bit louder right afterwards. But yeah.
heard in my organ training, I heard it was one of the BYU deans, whatever. He came to Alaska and he gave us training, and he said that his point was, don't make yourself louder because the crowd will go louder in their sound. So his point was, he gave us a story of how this one organist kept turning it up and up and up, and it was just becoming a chaos. So in his understanding, there should be like maybe your mental piano that you don't go beyond, so the crowd can still feel that reverence. So that's just one opinion that.
Perfect. No, I love that. You can just or keep it by if you think you'll. Okay, so moving on to congregational singing. In terms of the introduction, I generally play the introductions as they are marked in the hymns. I feel like some of them, there's a handful of them that I feel the introduction is too long. And so I personally have thought through a shorter introduction that I do in place of those. But it is important to pay attention to those because there are some where the introduction starts in the middle of the song and not the beginning. And so if you start at the beginning, then you kind of set yourself up for super lengthy. Did you have a comment? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I star in my hymn book. I star any time that the introduction does not start at the beginning, so my eye is drawn to that, and I can remember that. Obviously, if you're looking ahead and know what's coming up, then or if you've practiced ahead of time, then that's easier to see and to remember. Rochelle and I were just talking about this, that you want to follow the conductor to bring everyone in, but we feel that the organist is going to be the one that sets, and you do this with your introduction, but we set the tempo. Hardly anyone is actually watching the conductor, and so we, as the organist, you're kind of setting the tone. Any comments on that from you guys? Yeah, just keep the microphone by you. It's cool.
Are we recording or something?
Yes.
So in our ward, we have a lot of youth leading the music,
Yeah.
and right now we have an excellent youth band. But previously, we had some that we had to I would just pull them aside ahead of time and help them practice or train with the conducting because it's just hard and they're on the spot. But I do watch them, and on purpose, I don't finish my hymn until they close it. They and then they get me too.
When they know that they're being followed. A couple of thoughts. It is nice to communicate with your chorister that I personally need a little extra time at the end of a verse because I like to change my registration. So I just need time to hit a button before I come in on time. And so having that little bit of pause before he or she brings in the congregation is helpful to me. And so that communication is important. Tempo. So there are tempo markings for each hymn of suggested tempos. I try to always check with a metronome to make sure I'm playing within that. And I would say for the most part, I'm always playing at the higher end. I feel like a lot of the hymns have a tendency to drag. And so I personally want to be setting a quicker pace. And so that's something I pay attention to as well. There are some that I'm like, ooh, that is quite fast. And so I play more in the middle of the tempo range. But making sure that you're keeping the song moving. And that's what we do as the organist. The next tip is to make sure that you pay attention to punctuation. I think this is a sign of a thoughtful organist, of someone that looks ahead at the music. And I mark my hymns this way as well. And I do it pretty much just as this one does in this example in here, that I put a line, meaning I'm going to lift, and then I put a curve if I'm going to carry over. And between the verses, I think that really helps the congregation think about the words as they're singing more. I think that helps to support breathing, and it helps connect to the text of the music. So that's something that I think takes an organist to the next level, is someone who's looking ahead at the punctuation.
So Haley, can you explain what you mean by lift?
Yeah. So I'm just creating a breath with my hands, that I'm creating space, I'm creating silence as I lift, so that there is a slight breath, a slight pause. Yeah. Sure. Do you want to go up and show it?
Sure. Ooh. All right. I forgot I wasn't connected. Okay, so this example here on page 2. Okay, so on that first verse, you see there's that line between receive and then just. So you'll be playing, let's see, and then you're just going to lift and then play the next. Do like a new attack on the next note. So receive, just, okay. Whereas on the second verse, where there's that curved line, there's no comma in the text. We want to connect the words in and. So that would look like this. So no break in between. Connected. So it just illustrates the text and kind of brings it to life a little more, emphasizes what's going on in the text. Questions? If needed, you could do a glissando there or some of the other techniques to make it legato. In this example, I'm not needing to because I'm just moving from fifth finger to third finger. But in some examples, you might need to do a glissando or some other fingering technique that we talked about to help that stay connected. Sure.
So my understanding, from my limited understanding of organ, is that you're not playing every repeated note. Like sometimes you're holding, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you were getting to this too. But in this example, that E that's repeated, how often are you holding it the whole time, or do you just decide when to like say it again, just randomly? How does that work?
I can let Haley speak to that because it's coming up.
I was going to say, I don't know what Rochelle and Megan do. I would say I kind of play it by ear as I go, but definitely at the beginning of each measure, I would say, well, no, it depends. Definitely at the beginning of each phrase, I would play it again. In this example, we receive just as by, I don't know. What would you guys do?
But I play it by ear. I'm like,
Yeah.
So it depends on the song, it depends on the phrase, it
Yeah.
depends on the message that we're trying to portray. Because sometimes, and it depends actually even on the verse or some verses, like, like with the section of the band, or like every single verse is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you lift or what you don't, and it, like, so just listen, and like, a lot of times I will record and I play it back and try to sing with it and see how it sounds.
Yeah, I was going to say try it different
And
ways.
then like
Yeah.
feedback, like does it sound weird? Like, it's mainly just playing with it. And I've heard too, there's really no hard, fast rule about finger technique. Like the different people have different types of hands or fingers, like strength. And it's just a matter of what makes sense for you, and just playing with it and making that sound. Like whatever you can do to achieve that sound in the most efficient way possible. But and like, and so I take in that to heart. There's a lot of things that I can't do. There's a lot of different exercises that I can't do because my fingers, my hands are just too short to do that. Like, and so I have to do different types of techniques and do different whatever. Like, it makes sense for you, and like what sounds okay, what sounds good.
From what I understand, very, very, especially for our simple hymn playing, right? We're not doing a band. There, needs to be
Yeah.
always the rest of the stuff, you can hold it. And then obviously there are things like those exceptions, like you can hold it across the measure line or whatever you need at the time. But from what I understand, the convention is to repeat the note on the first on the
And melody and like I've noticed like some of the great conventions too, melody and tenor lines are more the ones that need more, you're playing more of it. The bass to be like you said, it depends on who has the what because it makes and that's why it's so hard to have like a hard and fast rule for everything. What's not sounding.
I think the example on page 2, the first 3 chords, they're all the same. So that kind of gives that weird gray area, right? But at least on the right hand, on the second set of 3, the lower note stays the same. But I mean, so it makes it seem like for notes that are moving, at least on one part of it, you could still probably maintain that one note depending on what it's doing, but it's definitely a bigger question when they're all staying the same through it.
What even is this hymn? I don't even know what key it's in. I don't know what key it's actually in. Yeah. Okay. So for this, I would probably hold down that the bass pedal through all those A flats, and probably also the alto, and then I might re-articulate the tenor and the soprano. So. However it goes. So you could also choose to hold the alto and the tenor and the bass, but I feel like that might get a little muddy and a little bit like unclear where the beats are, and I think it might help people stay together if you're re-articulating something. So definitely the melody, right? And then probably also the tenor is probably what I would do. So does that help a little bit?
Okay, I feel like we already talked about the general tips at the bottom with what we just talked about. So I'll just close my section by saying what to me is the most important thing for a pianist to do. For example, my oldest son is an incredible pianist. He wants to learn the organ, does not have time to do the pedals right now in his life. So he has that as a goal when he goes to BYU to learn how to play the pedals. But for right now, he's playing the piano on the organ when he plays. But here are the tips that I make sure he does every time that he plays the organ. Number 1, he has to play legato. That's number 1 rule. And so it is something I noticed when other organists played the organ as a piano instead of the organ as an organ. If you are not playing legato, it stands out as someone who has less experience, which is fine because we appreciate people sharing their talents and by supporting the congregation. But the number 1 rule that I make him do is play legato. And the nice thing is that you can practice that at home. You don't have to be on an organ to practice playing legato. You can do that at home. Just don't use the sustaining pedal, and so you don't have to make the trip over to the church to practice that. The number 2 rule I tell him is he has to pay attention to punctuation, because again, that levels you up as from a pianist to, and you try to do that as a pianist as well, but in terms of supporting the congregation and singing is making sure that you are paying attention to the text and when you carry over and when you don't carry over. And not that I do it perfectly every time. I try to, but there are times that I like zone out and I mess up, something with the punctuation. But it is something that I'm cognizant of. And then the number 3 thing is that we'll talk about in a minute for my next section is registration changes. I feel like even if you are inexperienced on the organ, the things that we're going to teach you today about registration, you can still change registrations between verses to help create variety and interest and in the congregation, even if they're not quite aware. So those are my 3 general tips that I would pass on if you're, a pianist who is going to be playing the organ, not using pedals, and hopefully that's a goal that you strive to do. But legato, paying attention to punctuation, and then registration changes. So,
All right, thank you. We're going to talk about some pedaling techniques, but real quick before I head over there, can I use your shoes? Yes. Okay. I want to talk about organ shoes real fast. Organ shoes, some of you may have them if you've had an organ calling for a while. I don't. I played the organ. I've had organ calling for like 20 years, and I don't have organ shoes. But organ shoes are awesome because they've got this leather suede bottom that helps it be a little bit grippy, but still slidey, just enough. And then it also has a heel at just the right height to allow you to play heel and toe and to be, yep. Okay. And it's a good width so that you're not hitting neighboring notes with the pedals. So organ shoes are great. These are Organ Master brand, and that's generally like the best recommended brand. You can find them online. They're also pretty flexible, so that's nice. It helps with your movements, so it's not too sturdy. And I've heard people say you can use dance shoes. I've never tried that or socks, but don't use street shoes. It's not going to work, and also it's going to ruin the wood. So I'm using socks today.
I would say try not to use bare feet either. The oils of your feet on the,
Right.
ruining.
Okay. So, real quick, we'll talk about positioning and how to sit. You can adjust the height of the bench. Our benches have a little crank here on the side, and so that makes it really nice. You can put it up and down. Other models of church organs might have like a base of wood that goes under that you can like take off to make it shorter. But ours are really handy. You just crank it and you can get it to the right height. You want to be at a good height where you don't have to like work too hard to hold your legs up, like they're not down too far, and you can also, easily touch, reach the pedals with your feet. And you're going to sit a little farther back on the bench than you would on a piano. Piano, we tend to sit really far forward, right? But if you did that on the organ, you'd fall off while you're trying to move your legs. So we want to stay nice and secure while we're playing, and so you're going to be farther back on the actual bench. And you can adjust also the distance here so that you're able to reach these expression pedals here as well. So this kind of takes a little adjusting to get to where you need to be. You can also kind of see, okay, where am I, like, finger-wise, can I reach both of the manuals? Yes. Yep. So it is, it's just sitting here. There's not, like, a track or anything holding it. So you can move it this way as well. And then the crank is right here. You can put the actual seat goes up and down. Okay? So, okay. And then let's talk about foot position. So generally your knees are going to be together because that's going to help you with finding the pedals without looking. So if you kind of get used to that positioning, it can help you gauging distances when your knees are together. The feet are going to be more or less parallel to the direction the keys are. And generally you'll play more on the inside of the foot, but that might vary depending on what technique you're using, or if my right foot is like moving farther down to this lower part of the keyboard, then I would be playing on the outer part of the foot just because of the distance and where, so I can reach. And same thing, if the left hand or the left foot moves higher up the keyboard, you're going to end up more on the outer part of the foot. But in general, in like this mid-range, you'll be more on the ball when you're playing on the toe part. And then when you're playing black keys, you're going to play maybe about, your toes will probably not go past halfway to the keys. We don't want to be like way up here. Okay. Because you want to be able to also play the white keys with your heels. So, okay. You're also playing with more of an ankle motion to actually press the keys. We're not lifting our whole leg or from the knee or anything. So the legs move left and right, and then the ankle is doing the up and down motion. Okay? So it's a good idea to get to the point where you can avoid looking down. You're going to need to look down, especially at first, and I look down often, but if I were a professional, I wouldn't. And so, again, keeping your knees together can help with this because you can gauge small intervals or large intervals. So when you have your heels together as well, that helps with smaller intervals. So I can feel with where my ankles are and how far my toes are, like this is going to be a fourth, and you can kind of get muscle memory, like this is always going to be what a fourth feels like, or a fifth feels like this with my feet, and your feet are different sizes than mine, but you're going to memorize and feel what that stretch feels like, what that spread feels like with your feet. So for smaller intervals, it's a good idea to have that the heels together. And then for larger intervals, you can use your knees like, okay, this is what an octave feels like, right? So as you're making bigger jumps, you can do it without looking, okay? And if you've played piano for a while, you probably do this with your hands. Like you probably can feel that's what an octave is without even looking. And so you can get to that point as well with your feet. So don't feel too intimidated about the not looking thing. You already do that probably with piano. And just with practice, you can get to that point as well with the feet. So, this one is really helpful. When I learned this, I was like, oh, this is so helpful. I wish I knew this sooner. You can use the black keys to help as a point of reference, as like a little target. So, for example, if I'm here and I need to play this F without looking, I can kind of tap and be like, okay, this is this group of black keys here. So that's where my F is, right? Okay, I need to go down to the F below. You can find, okay, this group of black keys, and then, so you can use that as like your anchor or your target. Does that help? Does that make sense? Any questions about this before we get into techniques?
Okay. I've learned these concepts like years ago. And how much did you need to practice, like to really feel comfortable, like you, Haley, whoever else plays pedals? Because I feel like it's been years, but I'm nowhere near where I would like to be. So, like, did you have to do it daily, every other day, once a week? Because I feel like once a week for me doesn't cut it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we can all share our experiences. When I first started on the organ, I had a goal of one hymn a week. I was going to learn the pedals on that one hymn, and the others I wasn't going to worry about. And so that I could just really focus on that one. And so I would go, I was probably 17 at the time. I would just go to the church once or twice a week and just practice really hard on that one hymn to get the pedals. And I would choose the easiest one, the easiest pedals, and I'd mark it in my part, and I'd practice pedals alone without the hands. And
And then you get nervous.
and then you get nervous. But that's part of the learning process is and getting the experience of playing. I think the nerves go down the more you do it. So, but I am still learning, and I'm like every time I play, I'm like learning more and more. So it's an ongoing process. So we did go from
So I started at BYU, my organ training, and so I was playing every other day as part of my class. And so I was, and part of the class was just doing kind of what the finger exercises and the pedal exercises. So that was part of my repertoire that I was working on every day that I had class, which was every other day. And then I started learning hymns a little bit, but it wasn't until I got called as an organist, then I was like, oh, okay, now I have to really be serious. And so, I don't know, I would try to go over a couple times a week. And I started slow, kind of like what Megan did, where I didn't attack every single hymn trying to do the pedals. I worked up to that. And then I would say there are still some really difficult songs in the hymn book. For example, I'm playing O Savior, Thou That Wearest the Crown tomorrow, on Sunday. And I feel like that's one of the most difficult ones. And so I've practiced 3 times this week on it just to try to make sure. And I'm one that I have to over-practice because I get nervous. And I deal with nerves. And so I over-practice so that when those nerves kick in, then I can still play it proficiently, even, a mistake here or there. But that's personally what I do to deal with nerves. So.
anything to add, Rita?
Yeah, it's like, so I started at a organ workshop similar to this, like, and then it was just like 9 short kind of lessons, like with an organist who sat down with me and helped me to, as kind of a part of a class, which was super helpful. But yeah, it's like similar thing is I actually practiced every single day, like 5 days a week, about an hour each day. I'm like, but again, like I was able to at that time because my youngest son was in preschool, and yeah, just worked through it. Like, and I did make it a priority, and I think that like that says a lot. Yeah, but also like when I was starting on the hymns, like when I became, because I learned a few, and then I would, like, and then I said, okay, I'm ready to play. And then it's like, so I talked to, like the music coordinator in our ward, and I said, okay, it's like, I've been working on these hymns, like for, and it took me, I think, almost like 9 months to learn 3 hymns. Like, and, because like starting from scratch, it's like, it's hard, like, so it's like, Come Follow Me, and, like all of those basic ones that are really, really simple. And then then once I did that, like I was ready for another round, and then that's when our word switched, or the boundaries changed, and all of a sudden I was the organist, and I was like, holy cow. I was like, I need to do it. Like, so then I used the bass coupler, and I was, and I pedaled, like with the bass coupler on to kind of give me that, I guess, backup, like, so to have that backup sound, but practicing, like maybe not even hitting all of the pedals, but where I was getting that motion, like I was practicing that motion, and like then, like every time that I play, now I practice, I come over here every day, like, I now have a job, I work, like, so I get over to the church, like, at like about 4:30, like, and I only have maybe half an hour, but like, so because of that, like, I spend probably a couple of weeks prior to when I know I'm playing, and I spend that time and I really work, and it's been a challenge with these new hymns coming out, like, it's like, and I feel like I'm almost starting over again with the organ. I'm trying to figure out how to do the pedaling and marking it up and playing, but it's like, yeah, practice, and that's what I was told, like, just as much as you possibly can get over to the church, how often you can, because the more consistent that you are, the better that you will be.
Can I just add one more thought? So the hardest part for me learning the organ was actually separating the tenor and the bass line, because as a pianist, you always play those together. So as an organist, I actually never play the bass note with my hand. I'm only playing the tenor, sometimes tenor alto, with my left hand. So that was tricky for me to completely separate the tenor and the bass line in my brain, because it was whatever word, ingrained. Sorry, it was ingrained in my brain as a pianist. And so, yeah, that really pushed me. I had to know my pedals well. And then the nice thing was I could practice the soprano, alto, tenor at home all the time, on my piano. I didn't need to go to the church. And then I was just going to the church to practice adding in the pedals. So.
Okay, we had a newcomer. Do you have a handout? Okay, and then did you get the roll? Okay, okay, great. Okay, look at page 7 with me. We're going to talk about some pedaling notation. So as you are practicing and preparing, you can pencil in your hymn book how you want to do the pedaling, so that you're not just making it up every time, and you can look ahead and prepare. So that's notated with this like pointy carrot thing for the toe, and then a circle or like a U shape for the heel, and then you'll write it above the note to indicate the right foot, and then below the note will indicate left foot. Okay? All right. Yes, write it in, for sure. Okay, let's talk about legato techniques and how we can play a smooth, connected, when I say legato, I mean connected and not breaks in between, okay? So there's a toe glissando, and that's going to look like using the same foot, the same toe on the same foot to play black notes, or to play notes back to back. So it could be a black key to a white key that's next to it, or it could be from a black key to the adjacent black key. So, yeah, so when it's from a black key to the white key, you're just sliding, you're playing with the toe, and you're just sliding down and then grabbing the white key with the ball of your foot, so that there's not a pause in between. Oh, yes. Is Brother Taylor there? Yes, we'll get you a picture. Yay, okay. So, all right, so let's go from black key to black key. So that looks like playing with the ball of your foot, and then you're just going to rock over to the outside of your foot for the next note. Okay? You can do it either direction. Okay, you can also do from a black key to a white key. So then you're just playing with the ball of the foot, and you're sliding down to the white key that's next to it, and grabbing it with the ball of your foot. And what we're trying to do is have it connected without hearing a space in between. So, yep, so you just leave it on and slide, and then you grab it with the ball of your foot, and then release that black key. Okay? Yeah, any questions about the glissando?
In general, when you're playing the foot pedals, do you, even when you're playing the black keys, do you try to use the ball of your foot when you're moving up to those, or do you normally play black keys with just your toe?
So, yeah, you'll play with like the ball of the foot. Yeah, and not like the tip of the toe. Yeah? Yeah. It's more surface area, and it's more accurate. Yeah. Okay. All right, substitution is our next technique. You can notate it with like that line in between. So this is where you're playing with a, let's see, you're playing with a note with one foot, and then you're going to substitute and come behind and play that same note and you're going to take over with the other foot. Not freeze up this foot to go wherever it needs to go. Okay? So I'm playing with one foot, I come behind and take over to free up this one to go where it needs to go. And you can do the other direction as well. So this can come behind.
And you have to use that one all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yep. Okay. Yep. There's in the hymn. There's lots of jumps. Where you're.
Megan, when for the substitution with the foot pedals, are you normally only doing that when you have moving notes? Because otherwise, you would just play it with that foot,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So you would use that when you need to free up your foot that's currently playing to do the next thing. So for example, if I'm playing something down here with my left foot, and I've got my right foot here, and now the next note is like way up here, okay? So we don't want that big break while my right foot moves. So the left foot's going to finish this note, come behind and take over so that the right foot can move. So the purpose of that is to allow the foot that's currently playing to be free to go where it needs to go. Sometimes I've been taught to do it behind, but sometimes I don't do it that way, and that's probably just a technique issue on my part. I don't know. But yes, I've been taught that you do it from behind. Yeah. On the black key, so you're playing here, and then you just come behind, and you're kind of sliding under. I don't know if that's the proper way to do it, but I just kind of like lift and let the back foot come underneath. So I kind of go up on the toe a little bit and let the other foot take over.
It might depend on what direction you're going. Like, I feel like sometimes my right foot comes on top of my left foot to substitute so that my left foot can move down. I don't know. So
Yeah.
it might depend on which direction you're moving next on the piano, whether you come behind or whether you come on top. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Turn to page 8. This is our last pedaling technique we'll talk about today. This is called toe heel substitution. So this is where you're walking with one foot. Okay. So you will be like in this example, you're playing with the heel. And next note, you're playing with the toe. And then while you're holding down that note, you're going to substitute and take over with the heel. And that frees up the toe to play the next note. Okay, so you're playing with the heel, toe, the heel takes over on that same note, frees up the toe to go to the next. Here's walking. Yeah, you can go the other direction as well. That's a little more awkward, actually. You could, but yes, in the hymns you're going to have lots of jumps, and then this like stepwise motion is not as common in the hymns, but it does happen. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any last questions on pedaling? Yes.
It's hard to tell from this angle, but there are gaps in between the white keys, right? To where, like how you were saying, use the black keys to kind of feel where you are. You can feel the gaps between
Yes.
the white keys, right?
Yep. So between, this cluster and this cluster, there is kind of a gap here between those white keys. And yeah, that could also be a landmark. Yeah. Okay.
I'll just make one quick comment. So one pedal technique that I'm not good at is the going from toe to toe and rocking back and forth on the black notes. Like, I'm just not good at that one, and even though I've practiced it, I just can't do it as well. And so I don't play legato sometimes when I have to do that, but I'm playing legato everywhere else to try to cover up my, So anyways, I'm just saying that you don't have to aim for perfection. I use things to cover up, when I'm not able to do it as well as I wish I could.
Definitely.
So, I'm thinking if we practice once in a while and we go and make your schedule for practicing the pedal, would these exercises that you're showing here for glissando, toe glissando, substitutions, would this be something like you would start with and kind of do it like a muscle memory every time?
All right. Yep. All right. So welcome. Okay, it's so we talked about the organ, but this is the whole part is the organ console. And you don't really think about all these different things, and I honestly forget what they're called, and I have to always review. But it is good to know the different terms, the terminology, and what you're doing. So you can, especially when you're talking to another organist or whatever, then you can have clear communication, and especially when you're trying to get help with things. That would be good. I will make sure to mention, I want to highlight getting to know the organ manual. It is, you can Google it, and I think that Megan will have the link to it. So make sure that you become familiar with the owner's manual. That will be your best friend. It tells you everything that you need to know about that. Okay, so to get started, first of all, I'm going to get on the organ so I can point out all the different things. Okay, so we have the 3 different sections here for the different, these are the stops. So these are the stops for the pedal. These are the stops for the swell. And these are the stops for the grate. Now here we have, of course, this is the pedal. So this is the whole part where the pedals are. It's called the pedal board. Okay, it's this whole entire thing. And then right here, this is, of course, the swell, and this is the grate. And there was a question earlier about, when do you use the swell and the grate? This is what I was taught in all my trainings and different things, what I've heard from the BYU online professors and everything. Typically, the swell will be used more for your, the softer playing. It's not really, supposed to be really used for congregational singing, although I do use it like you can. But mainly for your prelude, postlude, just kind of differences. But you can also add, the organ is awesome. You can add the stops, so you can take a bunch of the sounds from the swell and add it to your grate, so you can make it even greater. Anyway, so there's so much fun. There's so much that you can do. So just play around with them. That's what I did. There's a lot of things. We have the hymn player. That's where I got a lot of my suggestions. So that's where I start from, as to where, and Haley will be talking about registration. I want to go through this really fast. Just kind of the basics. It's so we have the on-off button. This is one of your best friends too. So if ever anything gets messed up, with everything, you can just always shut it off and turn it back on, and things will be reset to the norm. Over here, there's a panel over here where it will tell you what the organ is tuned to, what memory you're on, and it will also tell you how much volume you have for your for the different things, and I'll show you how to do that. So I see the general. Okay, so here these buttons right here are called the pistons. So here are you have, these are your general pistons, and then these are for your swell. And honestly, I don't really these are the ones for the general pistons are the main ones that you'll use. The pedal pistons, like actually they're all kind of connected. Like so when, right, like so I'll back up a little bit. Like so, our organs are awesome. We have presets. Like, so there's the LDS presets. Like so when you turn it on, like if you do memory number 1, memory number 2, and you push any of these buttons, like like it'll start off quieter. Like and then you go up to here to number 10. And like so, there's all sorts of things ranges in between. Like so, just play around with what makes sense for that. Like so, there's that. Let's see the. Okay, sorry, so I'm looking at my notes, just trying to get through this so we can make up some time here. All right, so the pedal, okay, it's like, so the couplers. Like, so if you, like I said, if you are not comfortable playing the pedals, like, to make that, that deep bass sound, like, you can use the bass coupler, like, and to bring that out. Like, so there's, without it, like, here, I'll go to a, you can hear it better. So you can see, like, you have to, it doesn't really work when it's up higher. Like, it's in the lower, that bass, those bass notes that you, like, so you hear that bass. And it only works on the general, not the swell. You want to bring that out. One of the great things that we have on our organ is that we have a headphone jack under here. I would suggest getting, like, it is one of the bigger connections. Like, so I've invested in a nice set of headphones, like, so it sounds like you're actually playing the organ instead of some, otherwise it will kind of translate it so it sounds more, I don't know, like a keyboard, like, and it's really basic and it sounds awful. And I use this when, like I need to run through my hymns before I start Prelude, and there's people who are, coming in to do musical stuff, like, and it, like, so you can do that, you can do your own thing. They might hear, like, a little bit of squeaking of the pedals or whatever, but they can do their thing, and you can do your thing and be ready to play. So I did want to point that out. Okay, it's the expression shoes. It's like, so I do want to print out this. So this is the one on the right-hand side is the crescendo. And I will say I never use this, and a lot of my, like, all the different online training that I've heard is basically never use it because there's, okay, it's like, so what it's supposed to do is to crescendo or decrescendo, adding stops to make, gradually, so that by the, if you have it all the way open, all the way pushed back, then it will open that, it's like have a bigger sound. And it's just harder to control how much. So I want to just kind of demonstrate like how that sounds. So as I gradually increase it. All right. It's like, so I mean, you can use it. I know some people do, like, because they don't know how to register the organ, but hopefully they should be learning from Sister Call.
So one reason that people tend to stay away from that is because you never know at what point more stops are going to be added. So you can't really control it as much, and you might be playing, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's like too many, or, So.
Yeah, and every organ is different, even though we have the same basic organ in all of our buildings, which is fortunate. Our building is, like the Woodson's building, is very hard to push down on that. And there have been some times when it's been stuck, and we've had to actually, because it sounds weird when you have other things that are on, and it adds to your, you're like, what is going on? But when you have other stops, at first we're like, why are there more stops? Why is there more sound? Like, because a lot of times it will look like it's all the way down, but it's not. And it's, we were thinking that there was something wrong with the organ, and we had to, actually stomp on it to get it. Like, so it's not very controlled. It's not a controlled way to do that. So there are different ways. There are several memories. Like, so like I said, like the memories for 1 and 2, like for the basic LDS organ, you can do. But there's also numbers, like like so that you can program in your own. And I will just say, like, so for mine is number 40, and right now it's 41. It's like, so in order to get to that, like, so like I said, over here on the memory, like, so when I come in to sit down and practice, it's like I push down on the plus, like, so it will go individually by single up to 10, and then it will go 20, 30, 40. So it just takes a moment, and then it's like, and then I have my presets, all the ones that I figured out, and I set, like, and again, with the organ manual, it will tell you how to set all those. I think, and I will say, like, if you are using presets, please make sure, like, you know, when you're checking a number, you know, like if you push any number, like when you get to a number, you know, push all of the numbers here to make sure that nothing lights up before you commit to that.
You're talking about the memory.
The memories,
presets,
yeah, the
if
memory
you're
presets. So you
setting
can own your own,
registration.
so you can own your own presets, because I really don't like the LDS presets. Like, you know, like I said, like from my organ classes, I learned different things that I liked. Like, so
And
again,
Haley's
here's my
going to get more into registration.
yeah,
so
like
if
the
you
registration.
could
Yeah, like, so I will.
give us just like 2 minutes on the expression.
Yep, like that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, it's like, so I have. Like, so I have it set to my, like what I typically use for my sacrament hymn, just to give you like a sense of what I, like the sound. And it's like, so for the, okay, it's like, so the one in the middle is for the swell. Like, so that's going to, like I said, the volume. Like, so I just hold it up. Like, it holds like the whole thing. Okay. Like the one in the middle. Like, so the one in the middle, like, so if you, yeah, in order to control the volume, like right now it's all the way down. It's like, and typically with a service, you're going to want or just about all the way up. Like, so there's all the way forward. So you can get it somewhere in between. Like, so for me, like for prelude, I will have it pretty low, like somewhere. Like, so it's closer to all the way down, like, so it's quiet. Now I'll do the same thing for the great, like you can hear that. So again, it's just basically using like a pedal for you know, like the gas or whatever, but it's a little bit more, you know, pushing forward on that.
So
Yes, like, so yeah, like I said, the one in the middle is for the swell, and the other one is for the great. And typically, like for me, like I have everything connected, like the swell to the pedal and whatever. It's like, so I try to make them as even as I can, and it will show you like the bars that go up. Any other questions? Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, yeah, so there's a screen on the right, and it says, so on the left hand, it says great / pedal, or GT / PED, so great and pedal. And then the other, the one on the right, like the little bar, it says SW, and that's your swell. And that will show you in relation, like how much volume there is. Hopefully that answers.
that's great. Thank you.
All right.
So those ones are adding volume but not adding stops, as opposed to the one on the far right that adds more stops. We're going to hear from Haley now about registration and choosing which stops you want to use.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to just be real quick so we can wrap up. If you look at your yellow sheet, it talks about organ registration, and I'll let this mostly be independent reading, but a few things I wanted to point out is that there's 4 families of stops. So you want to use the principles mainly. It's the best for supporting a sound. And so this is what I'm using mostly when I play the organ, and then I'll use the flute sounds more for my meditative hymns or for my sacrament hymns, my flutes and my strings. So I'll pull back the volume that way and just use some different sounds. Reeds, I just want to point out, they are marked in red on the organ, and you want to use those sparingly. So for the very final verse of Spirit of God or something, I might put in, or maybe verse 3 and verse 4, I might put in a trumpet or whatever. But you want to use those more sparingly, so you don't want to have a ton of those on at the same time. So another reason why I wouldn't use the crescendo pedal, which Rochelle talked about, because it's going to be adding like 2 or 3 reeds at a time, and that's just too much brassy sound. Fiery, spicy is what I wrote down here. So, and then you can see the pitches of organ stops, so you can understand that a little bit better. For course registration, just recognizing that all voices are of equal importance. And so when I play for the congregation, I'm playing everything on the great. When I'm doing prelude, when I'm doing postlude, I have my hands separated on the swell and the great. When I'm, if I'm accompanying or things like that, then I might split my hands. But for for supporting the chorus, the congregation, that's what I'm trying to say, is then I'm keeping both my hands on the great personally. Things to avoid: you want to avoid celeste and tremulants and the Nazar 2 2/3 and the 1 3/5, simply because so the tremulants and celeste, they wobble on the sound, and so they are not helping the congregation hear the pure pitch because it's wobbling. So just a recommendation to not use those when you are, so use them for your prelude, your postlude. I personally, every rare occasion I might add in the Nazar, the 2 2/3 on a final verse or something like that. But generally avoid that. So you'll see that the 2 2/3 is an octave plus a fifth. So they're hearing not only the pitch it's supposed to be, but a fifth above as well. And so that just gets a little bit confusing when they're hearing extra pitches, in addition to what's written in the music already. Trying to think what else I want to hit. The tips at the bottom for clarity, you want to build up kind of one stop per pitch. So you're adding an 8, and then you're adding a 4, and then you're adding a 2. That's going to add clarity to the sound. And for richness, for fullness, which you're kind of doing when you play for the congregation, then you might be adding multiples of building up in like a pyramid fashion. So I'm going to have 3 8s down, and I'm going to have a couple 4s down, and then I'm adding the 2, and then I love adding in the mixture, again, as not from the start. I usually add it in as I'm moving along in my registration.
And those numbers that she's talking about are there on the stops. They're right there next to the name. So.
And if you move to the back, trying to think of anything that we haven't mentioned. I would say in general, I build upward for each verse. So I start a little bit simpler, and then I'm building for each verse with a little bit more stops, a little bit more sound. It depends on the hymn. There are some times that I might start a little fuller, and then the second verse is very reverent, and so I will pull back on that verse, or it's talking about, in Gethsemane, and so I'll pull back on that volume to make it a little bit more reverent and sacred, and then I might increase the volume back for verse 3. It just depends on the text. I would say in general, I'm building up. So like Rochelle, I have my own memory that I have on the organ, and I've occupied like 3 or 4 of them, because I have one set for like my full hymns, and then I have some set for my meditative hymns, and I have some. Anyway, so I'm occupying different memories according to different sounds and different styles that I'm going for, and then I mark it in my music, and so that I can remember. So, Come Follow Me is going to be number 30 on my memory, and I'm going to do the intro with pressing the 6 button, and then I'm going to do verse 1 and 7, and then I'm going to change it, and then I'm going to go back to verse 3 is going to be back to 7 or whatever. So I personally mark it in my hymn so I can remember from time to time, and then I have it already decided. I will say that even though I feel pretty proficient on the organ, I still practice every Saturday at least, depending on how difficult the hymns are, but just to run through the hymns on the organ in terms of registration and sound. So I'm looking at, sometimes I'm in a creative mood and I want to try something new. And so I'm messing with the registration sounds And I'm also studying the text and making sure that I have that marked. And so I usually will play through, the introduction and then all 4 verses of how I want to play them. So I'm studying the text as I'm doing that and the different sounds and if I want to change things up with my registration. And so that helps me feel prepared for Sunday. So you can see on the back of that sheet also I have different examples of registrations that you can try for the different types of hymns. And then I typed this up late last night, so I can make a copy if anyone's interested, but it has 4 different hymn example, or maybe 5, and so it has Nearer to God. Here are some things that you can do, and this is from a BYU class, so some of these stops we don't have on our organ, so you would have to improvise with trying something similar. But so I have this if anyone's interested. So it has Nearer My God to Thee, With Humble Heart, O God, the Eternal Father, Now Let Us Rejoice in How Firm a Foundation, of how you would build up, or how you would change color, or how you would take down, or how you would do richness, or sometimes, and I love doing this, and I don't do it for every hymn, but I love changing registration sometimes between the verse and then the chorus. So, my verses will all mostly be the same, and then I'll change registration right before I hit the chorus, and just boost the singing for the chorus. And so I'm happy, we are out of time, but I'm happy to stay after and show anyone how to set your registrations and how to do the memory, so I'm happy to do that. Are there any questions about registrations that I can answer? Okay, Harvey is just like, whoosh. The registration, yeah.
It's going to take a couple moments for care of the organ because it takes a village. Again, I think that I just want to reiterate what Dave said. Wearing organ shoes or shoes used only on the organ, or clean socks. Please no bare feet. Because it leaves those oils. Like I said, just reiterating that. Cleaning any part of the organ just with if there's gunk on it, just a really not very. Just a lightly damp microfiber cloth, and then following up with a dry cloth. But try to just use a dry microfiber cloth only. And just keeping liquids away from the organ. If you're playing, please don't use lotions or hand sanitizer right before, because it will leave the residue behind, and it will the plastic, it will eat that plastic up. So just please don't do that. And then also, again, takes a village. If you see any kids or anybody who is messing around on the organ who shouldn't be and jumping around, it will break that pedal board. So don't be afraid to speak up and tell them to skedaddle. And I really do appreciate that, because
Thank you so much. I will add also, if we can avoid putting books and hymn books on the top of the instruments, the piano and the organ, that would be excellent. We have, I bought these bins, and they say hymn books on them for the purpose of storing them. So if you are not using them, you're swapping out for the binder with the new hymns or something, you can just place the other hymn books in that little plastic bin. They're in all the buildings, just so we're not scratching the surface. So that concludes our organ workshop. I will send out an email with the handout that we had, so you will have a digital copy that will have hyperlinks for all of those links. The back page has other resources. So there's online classes that are free on YouTube. There's paid classes through the BYU, et cetera, et cetera. So take a look at that. We have some books and resources up here. I have a book for manuals only hymns that have been made so you don't have to play the pedals. There's every hymn in our hymn book has been written out as far as pedaling and when to lift and when to not lift with the commas and all that stuff we talked about. So somebody went and did all of that. So you can peruse over here, thumb through these. We also have refreshments back there, so get your blood sugar back up. There's oranges and donuts. So thank you for coming. And yes. Yep.
So something I didn't know until I started helping Megan was the church handbook talks about for people that are wanting to learn how to play the organ or the keyboard, the church actually has, or some people set up a fund with the church to provide keyboards for people who want to learn at home. So there's in the handbook you can find a link for it. It's in section 19 of the general handbook. It says a music education fund has been established at church headquarters to provide keyboards, training materials, and instructions for members seeking to develop those skills. And so it's and you can find it on the church website too. So if you have the desires, if maybe you have a piano or something at home, you can get with Megan, and if you need help getting those resources, but the church can provide those for you so you can learn and practice in your own home.
Thank you. Okay. You are dismissed. But stay. Because we're going to do the conducting workshop now. So we'll take maybe a 5-minute break, okay? So walk around, get